Embodying Our Faith, Becoming a Living, Sharing, Practicing Church by Tim Morey. Introduction, page 21. The church prided itself in being contemporary. It had a genuine love for the lost, and its staff attended ministry conferences at Saddleback and Willow Creek. But for me, to say nothing of my unsaved peers, it felt foreign, out of place. It wasn't just the programs or the style of music. It was the posture, the place the church seemed to occupy in the world. So much about the church felt foreign, as if it had been plucked out of another time or place. It was hard to picture the church as a place you would go if you were really looking to find answers about life, God, and reality. I understood, even then, that people would stumble over the cross, but it felt like I had to get them past an array of stumbling blocks just to get to the one stumbling block that mattered. And so, as I began to feel God's pull toward vocational ministry, a question began to brew in me. Is there a way that we as the church can be faithfully, even radically, biblical, and at the same time be culturally relevant? This question has led me into deep love for and deep frustration with the church. Through 9 years serving in 2 church-based college ministries in Southern California and, since 2003, as a church planter leading a young church in Torrance, California, ministering from the margins. Torrance, like most of Southern California, is very unchurched. Plausibly, estimates put the unchurched population at about 95%. So when we launched life, we were under no illusions that this was going to be easy. One pastor friend told me, "Good luck. Torrance is where church plants go to die." Sometimes I hear stories from older pastors of days gone by, and it seems like they're talking about churches that existed in a whole different country, or at least in a radically different culture. A steady flow of conversions, young singles and families streaming through their doors, building programs to accommodate all the growth. Many of these pastors tell their stories with a sense of nostalgia, for they too realize they are speaking to a different time, even if the place is the same. The culture has shifted under our feet, and ministries look increasingly different. For a long time, the church in the United States has enjoyed a sort of home court advantage. The nation was culturally Christian, and the language that we used to describe God, salvation, heaven, hell, scripture, and other religious concepts was understood by the vast majority of Americans. When we spoke about God or Jesus, we could reasonably assume that roughly the same image would come to mind for the listener. The average person held values that were marginally Judeo-Christian, had never met a Buddhist or a Muslim, and didn't question whether truth existed or could be known. All of this is changing. As our culture moves deeper into the 21st century, none of these assumptions hold true. The term God will likely bring to mind any number of images, from a theistic God in Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, to the deistic God who had something to do with creation but is now uninvolved in the world, to God as an impersonal force as in Buddhist or New Age teachings, or God as in the pantheon of spiritual beings as in Hindu teachings. Perhaps most likely of all, mentioning God will invoke the squishy, nondescript God of pluralism, the God who can be reached no matter what we think he or she might be like, and who accepts pilgrims who have taken any religious path to reach the deity. This God, if personal, is inevitably loving, approves of, or is at least indifferent to, various lifestyles, and is the unlikely event, and in the unlikely event that he or she will judge people for their actions, judgment will only fall on those more wicked than you or I. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has given way to the God of Oprah, Eckhart Tolle, and The Secret. America must be best described as post-Christian. The tenets of postmodern thinking, which once were fringe, have trickled into our culture and become normal. Unreached, unchurched, and dechurched. In 2007, the Barna Group released an important study on attitudes toward Christians held by 16 to 29-year-olds in the United States. Their top 3 impressions were that Christians are anti-homosexual, an opinion held by 91% of young outsiders, judgmental, 87%, and hypocritical, 85%. In our context, these observations ring true as we listen to our friends outside the church. In looking at the religious landscape of the emerging generations, there are 3 terms our church finds helpful in describing those who are outsiders to the church: unreached, unchurched, and dechurched.